We have a quorum. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First action item, to approve the Finance Committee's minutes from March 6, 2025 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Let's move on to the discussions. Monthly financial and investment report for February 2025. Robbie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. A little bit different today. Before you is the February 28, 2025, the highlights. And I will move through this relatively quick. Any questions, certainly speak up. I'm glad to answer those. Get right to the balance sheet here. And I've highlighted here cash and investments for 2025. We should be at this point in time at the end of the year about 42% into our budget. So far, we have received almost 98% of our revenues, so good news there. Our cash position is a little bit different from 2024 in that it's a little bit less due to the fact that we've had lesser fund balance, and it's the timing of receipts of cash flow, so no alarm there. Liabilities are very consistent. Relative to last year, we had some IT purchases and so forth out there that we had, so it's a little bit less this year to the tune of about $3 million. So that was expected for sure. And then total equity and fund balance for 24, it was about $51 million. We're making progress on our fund balance, which we've talked about, at about $43 million so far. Be mindful that about $33 million of the fund balance is required by board policy to be restricted for reserve purposes, et cetera. And then getting to the, any questions there? Getting to the income statement. So as I mentioned, we're 89% receiving ad valorem taxes so far this year, and this is at February 28th. I know we've gotten some additional funds in at that time. We received in interest investments, may not hold true. It will hold true for us, but the market's not doing well today if y'all haven't noticed, but we're 63% into what we have budgeted for interest revenue. For total revenue, year to date actual of about $98 million. So we're right on track to where we should be. Again, 42% we should be in expenditures. So far we've spent in admin expenditures about 37% of that. So right on target there. And with our programs, 25% there. So we're lagging a little bit behind there, but that usually catches up throughout the year. Year to date, we spent about $29 million of that. So we expect that to even out as we go through the year. And then finally, total expenditures down here were about 27%, should be about 42%, and the lag there is for the program piece that we expect to catch up. So the next graph here just shows that we're on track to where we think we should be compared to last year with our revenues. A little bit of variation there as well of expenditures there. We're on target to where we should be at this point in time during the year. The administrative budgets, this is JWB, the different divisions within JWB, and we're right on track with spending there. A little bit of lag, but we expect that'll catch up as well as we go through the rest of the year. No contracts signed, 25,000 to 75,000. We've had a couple of budget transfers that are before you there that occurred in February. Smaller amounts, one for $7,700 and the other one's for about $24,000 for information technology. So, and that was really to transfer a function out of finance for management of Paycor, our software program, that would be better supervised from a security standpoint in our IT department. So we felt like that was appropriate, and the dollars followed it, certainly. Any questions there on the income statement?
Hey, Robbie, just making sure I'm reading this correctly. So the three months of retained fund balance, essentially the rainy day fund, is that what's being assigned as projected assigned fund balance. So in 2025, that number says 33,192,616.
Yes, that's 25% of our revenues.
Do I
correct.
add that to the projected unassigned fund balance to get a total of 79 million?
Well, you've got your restricted of 33 million, and then on the budget report that we'll review next, it'll also show what the surplus above the 33 million is that's
Okay.
unassigned and would
Okay.
be at the board's discretion.
I guess
of how
my
to use it.
question is the 33 million assigned inclusive of the 45 million number? And it looks like the answer is yes, it is inclusive of it. So we
Yes.
would have 12,700,000. That's essentially the unassigned fund balance. Okay, I just want to make sure I was reading that correctly.
Yeah, you're correct on top of the
All right,
33.
thank you.
Yes, sir. And just finally, just last piece here, this is our investment portfolio. Just so you all know, with all the stuff that's going on with the market right now and today and in the last few days, we're in absolutely AAA rated investment per statute. We have to do that through the state's Treasury Department. We try to keep all of our money invested other than $1 million to $1.5 million in our working account. And you can see by this graph here, this is what's in the investment pool versus what we keep on hand for operating purposes. Here are the breakdown of the balances that we have. We try to manage the Truist Bank. This is our operating account. It's called a concentration account, around $1.5 million on average, depending on what we've got and our forecasting to be coming up. As we need to transfer money out, we try to do that on an equal basis to try to keep good diversification in the limited investment funds that we can invest in. Here's also a breakdown of that. As far as return year to date, we've got about 4.11% return as of February. Last year at this time, it was about 4.13. So that's where we are. Any questions there?
No.
Thank you. That's the end of that.
All right, then let's move on to the 5-year forecast for FY '26. Rodney?
Yes, sir. So as I get started on this, I'd like to recognize staff. Just raise your hand because we've all been a part of developing this. Richard, Stacy, Hunter, raise your hand to be recognized. Diana's up there, I think. They've worked very hard on this and helping put this together. We do a lot of forecasting. We do a lot of tracking of their expenditures throughout the year and stuff. And it's really, truly a collaborative effort. Certainly, we keep Beth in the loop with all that, and just yeoman's work goes into this, and I think you'll see that as we move through it. All right, Bree, I'm trying to go forward. There we go. The purpose of this is for guidance overall, and we're working on the FY '26 budget, so we're forecasting out several months, and the allocations that we will be communicating to our agencies as of the first part of May are preliminary estimates. And these are what the agency uses to build their budgets on. And it's important to them to have that and give them an opportunity to understand what their proposed allocations are. I want to preface that versus what they need to submit to us and what their budget would look like. And we'll vet that and have time to do that. And this gives us that opportunity. So in no way is that a final budget, and they understand that it is preliminary. The second bullet point there is just the preparation of the budget and getting feedback from this body and the board as to how we proceed. We are focused at the board's discretion, certainly, and it's good government management to have today's dollars being spent on today's society and today's children and these agencies that we support. We want to identify any what ramifications today's decisions make on what tomorrow's budgets look like too. So this helps formulate that. In the timeline, just real quick, today is the 10th. We'll be doing the Finance Committee, which we're doing now, as well as we'll be doing a board presentation later. The key date there is May the 2nd. Very important to the agencies to be able to get that preliminary allocation amount out to them. And as you can see, there's the rest of the dates there. They're in your packet. Millage rate. In FY '23, it was the first time in a decade that we went up on millage rate. went down on millage rate, and we went down to 0.85 from what it had been previously. And then in FY '24, the year thereafter, we went down to 0.82, and that hasn't happened in about a 35-year span. So be mindful of that as we go through that. Back-to-back millage rate decreases are few and far between here over a 35-year period. In '25, we maintained the millage rate equal to the '24 rate of the 0.82. Millage rate, the recommendation to continue the current level, and that's how we built this budget. Certainly that's up for consideration of this body as well as the board. Obviously maintaining it allows us to continue with our current allocations, our current strategic plan, and fulfill that, as well as to meet the minimum fund balance requirement that the board policy requires us to. That's the 33 million, Brown, that you were referring to. It also allows for increases as we go forward, and you'll see that we've got about a difference this year, a positive in revenue of about $5 million due to the property assessed values. And it is planned in this budget, pending approvals by all the appropriate bodies, to have a COLA in there, cost of living increase, for our agencies. And we'll talk further as we get into this presentation. That's about a $2.5 million reoccurring cost. And the 3.8 for JWB, mostly in salary increases, would be a little bit less than $250,000. Obviously, as you know, and from a deferred maintenance standpoint, as well as being able to offer COLAs, it's kind of the same theory. You can skip deferred maintenance on any building, but at some point you'll have to pay to catch up. And over the years, I think JWB has done an outstanding job with offering COLAs because the environment allowed us to do that. And it allowed agencies to be more competitive with their rates, wage rates, as they were paying employees, keeping positions filled, and being able to do things to enhance their operation in order to serve the participants that they serve. If you miss a year, you kind of set back. So be aware of that as we go through that, because I think that is relevant. We wouldn't want to undo things pending we've got the ability to do it, the prior spending that has occurred here. This budget also anticipates that we will allocate about $2.5 million to the capital RFA. Last year we had a budget of a little over $5 million, so that's been cut back. We only spent about $3.8 million of that, so I think that's worthy to note. Okay, Bree, if you'll stretch that to the extent you can. At your desk, you also have this, which is a little more visible for you. It's just hard to display all that and follow it on the screen. But as far as total revenues, and I'm going to need to see the whole thing, I think, Bree. But if you can just kind of pull the margins there. Click on it. Pull. There you go. I've got mine here, yeah. But if you look at what she's sizing that, if you look at the total revenues, there's about a 5.1 increase, and that's on the left side of your printout there. Also note that above that is tax revenue, 96%, and the 96% means that's the collection rate of the county. And we budget for that, knowing that they may not collect the full 100%. We've noticed a trend over the last few years, and our budget office has kept up with this, that the collection rate has slid a little bit. Last year we budgeted on 97%. This year we've decided to budget on 96%. Arguably that could be maybe a little bit less than that, but we feel like 96% is representative of where it needs to be. Bree, I need to see my columns a little bit there. If you can go to the left. So be aware of that as we go through there, but nonetheless, due to the recent property assessed values, there was limited impact, that looks good, Bree, on the hurricanes. There was somewhat a decrease, but overall a increase in assessed values of the 5.1 million. And then I will just touch on revenues really quick as we go through this. Administrative, we've got an increase there of about $400,000. That would include the COLA, obviously, and it also includes some other increases that we have in benefits as well as other costs that we have in order to operate that are due to really inflationary things that are typical every year that we will have. As we go on further down, program continuation. And I can't stress this enough, this is where the cash goes out the door. This is where Stacy Gill and her group vet the reimbursements request and look at the contract as well as the programmatic people, and we move forward with approving reimbursing the agency for the programmatic expenses that are associated with JWB's program and making them whole in their cost. So that's a big piece and the majority of our spend. This budget anticipates a $2.1 million increase in that. The next item down is the COLA, and I'll see if I can make this work. The COLAs, here's where I am, right here. So the COLAs are over here. As I mentioned, we've got about a $2.5 million increase budgeted for that. That's 3.8%. And then the next down is $1.5 million, and these are for program reductions. Next month, we will have a presentation for this body, or excuse me, for the board, to go through some program reductions as well as some proposals for non-renewals. And these are programs that aren't meeting expectation or have had lapse or have had other reasons, programmatically speaking, to adjust their budget. And we want to be very transparent with the board with that, and we'll go over that in some detail. There's not a lot of them. Most are doing exceptionally well, but there are about 7 or so that we are going to make recommendations, and that's where that $1.5 million comes from there. All right. The capital RFA that I mentioned, just a line below that, $2.5 million allocated for that. Last year we budgeted a little over $5 million. We spent about $3.8 million of that, so that's somewhat of a decrease, but nonetheless we feel like real competitive. I even have gone back in some history and relied on those that have been here a while, and it in the past, a few years back, on average, we probably $1 million or so that we allocated for the capital RFA. So we feel like that it will be competitive for this year. If you look in subsequent years, it will continue to adjust itself for the forecast. And then lastly, total expenditures, and that's just at the bottom down here. We've got $133 million in total expenditures. If you look back up to the total net revenues that I was talking about up here, we've got total net revenues of about $116 million. So obviously you can see that there's a gap there. There's a deficit there of about $17 million. We know as we go forward that we will have lapse, and that's systemic to our operation. It's systemic to our agencies, especially as they have position vacancies or they have new programs, et cetera, that are just in the process of getting ramped up. Sometimes that takes longer for others to do. And we count on our lapse, which is the figure right here, the $11 million, in order to help with that. And we know that we're going to get it. We want to make sure those monies are spent from year to year, so we budget for it in order to use that in our budget as well. If we fully budgeted, then we'd have another $11 million surplus, and that's not where we want to be, obviously. Back to Brian's comment is the $33 million, and I'm looking at the screen here, it's right there. That is per board policy where we need to hold, at least what we're projecting, where we need to hold our fund balance for next year in restricted monies. If you recall in the past, and you can look over a little bit, we had it all in unassigned, $49 million, and that change we've made is not representative of really what fund balance that we have available. But in this budget here, as you can see, the unassigned now is about $6 million. If you also look to the future years in the forecast, I don't have all that up there, but as you can see, this continues to decline. And again, this was something that we've talked about in this committee and at the board in order to spend down fund balance. We're ahead on doing that. Last year, we were ahead of about $2.3 million, so that trend is continuing. Knowing that we need fund balance to help us balance our lapse to balance our budget, When you have less fund balance, you're going to probably have to use laps in different ways. So we need to be aware of that as we go forward. This is a precursor of, it's not certainly a time of alarm, but it's a time to be focused and understand that when you have less fund balance, that limits opportunities that we have, and it also stresses that restricted fund balance that Brian was talking about. Puts pressure on that. So there's definitely a decline as it goes down. We want to maintain always to be compliant with board policy, about 25% of that. We do that. If you notice in the last couple of years, we'll see what that holds. We can only be predicting the future so accurately for this time of the year for sure. But we'll keep an eye on that as we go forward for sure. And finally, we will have this year in use and fund balance about $5.7 million in a loss. And we know based on the laps that we have and hopefully the good forecasting that goes on there, that will impact that sum one way or the other, we hope in a positive way. But we also have that availability that Brian was talking about in unassigned that we can use for that if all the budget forecast predictions that we've gone over here come to fruition next year. So that was a lot in a short amount of time. I'm glad to answer any questions or elaborate on any of that. But as we go through the slides, I will elaborate on key points that I think that you all will find relevant. Okay. Funding parameters, decrease in property values this year relative to last year. We had a 1.1 decrease, and compared to last year, I'm real pleased with that because as we had talked about in the past, we were uncertain as to how the hurricanes and the storm events would impact property values, especially this next year going forward, so be aware of that. This is a good slide that this board's seen before, or this body has seen before, and this goes back to 07, and that was a long time ago, clearly, but it took us this long for the ad valorem revenues to be adjusted for inflation, and really last year is when it caught pace with where we should have been back in 07, or where we were back in 07, where we needed to be in today's world, and last year we just kind of caught up with inflation. Who knows what the current economic events will hold that are happening now associated with tariffs and inflation and the stock market and supply chain and all that type thing, but there will be an impact on it. And as you can see, it's a long path back to catch back up. Another funding parameter point that I wanted to point out is revenue and fund balance considerations. Last year we had a goal of about 15%. In a fund balance, we actually got down to about 12.5%. So again, that's a real focused effort. In order to do that, this budget that you just saw, this proposed budget that you just saw for 26, will also impact that further, and that decline will continue to happen. Decrease in fund balance, it requires a shift from spending down and maintaining minimum assigned fund balance. So what that means is when we've got a loss that I pointed out, it's going to impact it. This year, the unassigned fund balance will be around 5%. As you saw in future years, that will continue to change. The strategic plan budget recommendation is we're allocating in this year's budget, and it's in your line item there, $638,000 for new and expanded programs. And that's for the early implementation of the new strategic plan, particularly around the 0 to 3 initiatives. In the future years, we're going to be allocating in this forecasted budget about $2.2 million. The interesting thing there to note, which was a really good observation, is in last year's strategic plan, the one that we're in now, I guess the current year is the way to say that, we've allocated about $4 million for new programming. So this is a little bit different than last year due to what we're projecting not only in 26 but in out years of what we're able to do. Certainly revenues will impact that, and one way or the other we can make adjustments from year to year as we need to. Budget recommendations. The COLA of 3.8%, not an arbitrary number. I know that the state and their research has shown that I think the Senate has approved a 4%. I'm not for sure that the House will. For the state of Florida, we don't know where that'll shake out, but in 26, they are projecting, at least the Senate is, of a 4%. We also look at the CPI. We keep an eye on that. It's a national number. The last we saw on that, it was 2.8. And then there was some recent data that came out just today, I think, that shows 2.4. And the reason for the decrease is the increase in fuel costs, gasoline, from a consumer perspective. I think it's reasonable to think that we may see some inflationary pressures continue to come back again due to the higher cost that maybe these tariffs will end up producing for us. We'll just have to wait and see on that. I don't think 3.8 is unreasonable. It's a little bit less than the states. It is higher than the CPI. I'm sure the CPI index is right, but it just feels prematurely low to me. That's just an opinion for whatever that's worth. New positions. In FY26, we don't have the position title for this. We don't know that the position will come to fruition, but as we continue this strategic plan and close it out and get into next year's and the new strategic plan, there will probably be new programs that will be a result of that. So I thought it was prudent that we added and kept a position in there. In out years, we've even budgeted 2 positions. Just out of an abundance of caution, depending on what the board wants to do. We can adjust that at any time. Those are no way obligations to fill them. And then COLAs for the programs, that's that $2.5 million that I spoke of. That's a 3.8%. That certainly can be adjusted if that's where this body and the board wants to be. Capital RFA for next year, for 26, we're budgeting $2.5 million. In the out years, $1.5 million, and certainly that can be adjusted as well. So there are a lot of interesting possibilities for this budget to be considered as we go forward, and certainly at any given time we can make budgetary adjustments as we're directed to do. That is my presentation of the budget, but I would like just to add that I told Beth how proud I am to submit this budget because it reflects a lot of good work that this board or this finance committee and our board has asked you to do. We've reduced lapse, as I talked about. We've maintained our administrative rate at 8%, and that's been very consistent over the years. We reduced the fund balance as this board has directed, even at a faster rate than what we thought we would. We continue to maintain expense control and exercise budgetary discipline in how we go about doing business. Also, there is a perpetual monitoring that goes on a daily basis about outcomes and contract compliance and making sure that the dollars that we're investing in these agencies show a return and are accomplishing the objectives that we want them to accomplish. So I think that is all good work. As we move forward, and you've heard me say a little of this in the past, we have a lot of unknown influences out there that will have an impact on our economy, our agencies, as well as JWB. And future property assessed values, we expect that there will be a trend there going forward, a positive trend. And we budgeted accordingly. There are all kinds of legislative changes out there, from sales tax to property taxes, from income taxes, I mean, you name it. And who knows where all that will land, but that's certainly a consideration that could have an impact on us that we'll continue to watch. Changes in federal funding, certainly as the federal government continues to contract, we'll see what that means from a financial perspective. It could have an impact on agencies that the state's funding that could have a ripple effect to us one way or the other. There could be pass-through funds that the state gets that maybe we're involved in. It could go either way. Future economic considerations, that's what all that's about, is just keeping an eye on the ball and doing the best we can with the information that we have before us. Future lapse and the ability to fill vacancies timely, that'll be a focus as we go forward. We've really ramped that up, and we even operate in a loss situation intentionally in order to anticipate lapse and be able to spend that lapse and keep those dollars invested. We may have to revisit how we do that and to the rate that we do that as we go forward. Funding of new strategic initiatives. That's our new strategic plan. That is future COLAs, this year's COLAs. That is capital investments that we can do, as well as how we fund and to the level we fund our existing programs. And again, that's based on outcomes. That's based on funding availability and certainly the direction this board provides to us. Future millage is another consideration. Certainly this, and here's a 10-month employee saying this, but based on what I've researched, the trend has been going down in 2 consecutive years. And as that trend goes down, that has an impact on revenue. And if your revenue decreases, then you're going to have to look at your expenses and your spend and stuff. And that's something we can do. That's part of the interesting possibilities that I think lie ahead of us here. And then lastly is just, you know, this county as well as this state's population, especially the children population. I've heard some about that, but that's something we'll keep on our radar as well. So that's my commentary, and that concludes my presentation. I'm open to any questions and certainly appreciate everybody's being here and the opportunity to put this good budget in front of you.
Any questions from the board? I do have one. There is so much uncertainty out right now about a lot of different things as to what the impact of the hurricanes, the property values, all those things. And we all have probably strong opinions one way or another with that. But what would it look like if we did look at the millage rate and just a projection so that we don't have to go through this later? Give projections on if we were to reduce the millage rate by 0.2 or some okay. number. What would that impact be? I think it'd be worth looking at to see what it would be based on where we're at.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Typically, we get not necessarily in April, but at some point we get a high level comparison of the current rate, the rollback rate, and then some other rate. Right. And
that's all I was asking for, is maybe a little bit earlier. That's all. But to start to plan for it, because you're new, 10 months.
Absolutely.
So just start to plan for that, because it's going to be important for us to look at and to see just where we are. And then by then, we also might see some other shifts and adjustments that are underway that, today we're not seeing.
Glad to do that. And the finance staff's here. They're already taking notes, and as well in a way we'll have some report for you on that to show you some of the variations of different scenarios of running a lesser millage rate. Glad to do that.
And one other one, you talked about the roughly 1.4 million or so in reductions from programs that aren't working. Are there others? Are there more that are close to that 7? Or the ones that just didn't quite make the low end mark, but might be really close to it? Are there some there that would be worth listening to, hearing about, and the potential of what that impact would be?
Absolutely. And we in our May meeting will have a presentation on I'm going to use a fancy word here, a report card that takes the consideration from the programmatic piece, as well as the financial piece, as well as the evaluational piece on program performance, and have it in one place on one card that an agency can look at. And there'll be some that will be on the margin. There'll be some that'll be well above the margin. But yeah, we have that information and would love to share it with you.
I'd love to see it before that, since I won't be here in the May meeting, but that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And we're going to continue. We have program review process that's happening currently. We'll be meeting next Tuesday, going over a number of programs, doing exactly what you're speaking to, is reviewing their overall performance, and are there other areas that we may find reductions or non-renewals. So that by May, we will have that information.
Any other comments or questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Seeing none, do we have any other open discussions, things to talk about? If none, I'll call this meeting to close. Thanks, everyone.